The moderator, a gray-haired PBS veteran, kicks things off with a polite scripted intro. Tonight, we're bringing together leaders from across the political spectrum for a real conversation, one our country has been needing for too long. Then comes the first softball question to Trump. Mr. President, you've spoken about your administration's impact on minority communities. What do you believe is your strongest achievement in that area? Trump doesn't miss a beat, launching into his trademark boast. Well, thank you. I've always said it, and the numbers prove it. Black unemployment was at its lowest in history under my administration. Nobody wants to talk about that, but it's true. We created opportunity zones, funded HBCUs permanently. I've done more for Black Americans than any president since Abraham Lincoln, and some say even more. The crowd's reaction is mixed: polite claps, a few loud cheers, plenty of silence. Jasmine glances up, her face unreadable. No notes, no flinch. Trump adds with a smirk, and you know the fake news won't admit that, but people know. They can see what I've done. They can feel it. Then the moderator turns to Jasmine, Congresswoman Crockett. Your thoughts? She adjusts her mic slightly, clears her throat once, and, with a voice soft but laser-focused, she delivers a devastating blow. Mr. President, Black people are not bullet points in a speech. We're not statistics you pull out when you need applause. We live the outcomes of your policies. We carry them. Trump stays silent for now. Jasmine continues, her words piercing. I grew up in Duncanville, 15 minutes from here. My neighbors lost homes during your tax overhaul. My uncle couldn't get a small business loan after the pandemic. And when we protested police brutality, we weren't asking for unemployment rates. We were asking to live. A low hum ripples through the crowd. Phones are already raised to capture this. Trump leans toward his mic, but Jasmine doesn't stop. I've read the numbers, sir, but I've also read the stories. I've lived some of them. And when you tell people you've done more for Black Americans than Lincoln, we hear something very different than you think we do. Imagine the scene: the Meyerson Symphony Center in downtown Dallas, bathed not in its usual elegant golden glow, but in the harsh, clinical glare of live broadcast cameras. The room is packed to the brim. News crews line the edges, cables, snaking around polished shoes and high heels. This isn't a concert or a gala. It's politics on full, unfiltered display. The event, hyped for weeks as American Voices, a national conversation on race policy and the future, is now live beaming to millions. At center stage stands President Trump, still in office, still a lightning rod of controversy. His red tie hangs stiff against his white shirt hands, gripping the podium as he scans the crowd with that familiar bravado. To his right, a panel of lawmakers from both parties, and among them, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas's 30th District. She's a vision of composure, almost unnervingly calm, dressed in a sharp black suit, hair pinned back with precision. No big team hovers around her, just a worn yellow legal pad, a binder, and a mind sharper than a blade. The moderator, a gray-haired PBS veteran, kicks things off with a polite scripted intro. Tonight, we're bringing together leaders from across the political spectrum for a real conversation, one our country's been needing for too long. Then comes the first softball question to Trump. Mr. President, you've spoken about your administration's impact on minority communities. What do you believe is your strongest achievement in that area? Trump doesn't miss a beat, launching into his trademark boast. Well, thank you. I've always said it, and the numbers prove it. Black unemployment was at its lowest in history under my administration. Nobody wants to talk about that, but it's true. We created opportunity zones, funded HBCUs permanently. I've done more for Black Americans than any president since Abraham Lincoln, and some say even more. The crowd's reaction is mixed: polite claps, a few loud cheers, plenty of silence. Jasmine glances up, her face unreadable. No notes, no flinch. Trump adds with a smirk, and you know the fake news won't admit that, but people know. They can see what I've done. They can feel it. Then the moderator turns to Jasmine, Congresswoman Crockett. Your thoughts? She adjusts her mic slightly, clears her throat once, and with a voice soft but laser-focused, she delivers a devastating blow. Mr. President, Black people are not bullet points in a speech. We're not statistics you pull out when you need applause. We live the outcomes of your policies. We carry them. Trump stays silent for now. Jasmine continues, her words piercing. I grew up in Duncanville, 15 minutes from here. My neighbors lost homes during your tax overhaul. My uncle couldn't get a small business loan after the pandemic. And when we protested police brutality, we weren't asking for unemployment rates. We were asking to live. A low hum ripples through the crowd. Phones are already raised to capture this. Trump leans toward his mic, but Jasmine doesn't stop. I've read the numbers, sir, but I've also read the stories. I've lived some of them. And when you tell people you've done more for Black Americans than Lincoln, we hear something very different than you think we do. Trump raises his eyebrows, amused, muttering something to a senator beside him, who offers a nervous half-smile. The moderator jumps in. Let's give everyone space to respond. President Trump will come back to you. But Jasmine doesn't look away. Not once. The air shifts, tension crackling like static before a storm. Then, in a moment too quiet for TV, she presses harder. Before we go any further, let's be honest about something. There's a pattern here, not just in policy, but in how you talk about us, how you talk to us, and who you choose to listen to. Trump rolls his shoulders back, settling in with a smirk, but says nothing. Jasmine's voice cuts deeper. You mentioned Black unemployment, but you never mentioned Black wages or Black maternal mortality, or that we were dying twice as fast during COVID and didn't get the same access to testing, vaccines, or recovery funding. Trump finally snaps, leaning in. Excuse me, that's just false. But Jasmine raises a hand. Calm as steel, Mr. President, you'll have your turn. I waited for mine. Gasps and claps erupt. The moderator hesitates. Jasmine's tone stays razor-sharp, steady, the kind that makes people lean forward. You talk about what you've done for us, but not what you've said about us. We remember the NFL protests. You called those players sons of bitches, told them to be grateful. Trump, visibly irritated, grumbles through gritted teeth. I was talking about disrespecting the flag. Jasmine nods slowly. The flag can survive a knee, Mr. President. Some of our children can't survive a traffic stop. That lands like a thunderclap. The crowd buzzes unsettled. Lawmakers shift uncomfortably. Trump's face flushes as Jasmine presses on. I represent people who've been profiled, redlined, locked out of generational wealth. People who heard you say there were very fine people on both sides after Charlottesville. Trump barks. That's not what I said, she counters, unflinching. It's what we heard. You said, stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys on national TV. You called countries where my ancestors came from, Haiti, Nigeria, shithole countries. We didn't make that up. Trump shakes his head, but his silence speaks louder than denial. Jasmine leans closer to her mic, voice dropping with chilling weight. You can't say you respect Black Americans while constantly disrespecting Black lives, Black intellect, and Black history. We heard you mock Congresswoman Presley, tell Ilhan Omar to go back to her country, attack Maxine Waters as low IQ. Trump snaps, frustration boiling. That's because she is low IQ. Loud groans and murmurs erupt. A man shouts, that's racist, before being asked to sit. Jasmine doesn't flinch. This is the exact thing I'm talking about. You can't help yourself. Every time you fall back on these dog whistles, you remind people exactly who you are. The moderator interjects, Congresswoman Crockett, are you suggesting the president's rhetoric is intentionally racist? Her response is ice cold. I'm not suggesting. I'm saying it plainly. Anyone who's lived as a Black person in America doesn't need subtitles to understand what he means. Trump breathes heavily, lips pressed, uncharacteristically silent. The crowd's silence feels like a verdict. Jasmine turns to the audience, her words slow, deliberate, like a courtroom closing. You don't have to scream slurs to be racist. Sometimes racism looks like indifference. Sometimes it wears a suit and shakes hands and still signs bills that make it harder for people like me to vote, to breathe, to live free. She pauses, letting it sink in. I'm not saying that to win a headline. I'm saying it because it's true. But the hardest truths are yet to come. Jasmine reaches into a folder under her chair, not dramatically, but with careful precision. She lifts a page to the mic. I want to be clear. This isn't personal. It's not emotional. It's documented. It's legal record. She holds up the paper for the camera. United States version, Trump Management, Inc., 1973. The Department of Justice sued Mr. Trump and his father for racial discrimination in housing. They had codes on applications C for colored. Turned away, Black families offered different terms if you were white. The moderator shifts uncomfortably. Jasmine places it down, grabs another 1990 Vanity Fair interview. John O'Donnell, one of your former executives, quoted you saying, Black guys counting my money, I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys that wear yarmulkes every day. You never sued him. You never denied it under oath. Trump chuckles bitterly, shaking his head. That guy was a nobody, a liar. Jasmine fires back. Funny how often your team becomes liars after they leave. She pulls another sheet, 1989. You took out full-page ads in 4 New York newspapers, calling for the death penalty for 5 Black and Latino boys in the Central Park case. Bring back the death penalty, bring back our police, you said. They were children, innocent, exonerated by DNA years later. You never apologized. Not once. Trump opens his mouth, but she cuts him off with calm, cold clarity. You said they probably did something, as if wrongful convictions justified their pain. You think Black Americans forget that. You think mothers don't hold on to that memory the same way they hold their sons. The room feels heavier. The moderator looks stunned. Panelists stare at their shoes. Trump sips water, trying to regroup. Jasmine isn't done. You revoked diversity training in federal institutions, called it un-American propaganda, divisive to teach the real history of slavery, redlining, voter suppression, mass incarceration. You called the 1619 Project a threat to national unity. When educators tried to center us, not just tolerate us, you labeled them radicals. Trump laughs, leaning in. That's because they are radicals. They're rewriting history. Jasmine blinks, her retort cutting. The only people who fear the truth are the ones it convicts. That line turns heads. I didn't come here to play respectability politics, she adds. I didn't come to be polite about injustice. Black Americans have spent generations being polite and still ended up on the receiving end of policies designed to break us. She taps her folder. Let's talk about your push for voter ID laws in majority Black counties. Let's talk about your attempts to throw out legally cast ballots in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee cities with large Black populations. Trump interrupts tense. That's about fraud. Everyone knows it. Jasmine doesn't flinch. You know what people know. They know when they're being targeted, when their voices are diluted, when their votes are treated as suspicious, just because of where they live or what they look like. Trump rolls his eyes. Here we go again. Jasmine nods softly. Yes, here we go again. That's the point. It always goes again because it was never fixed. The moderator tries to pivot. Congresswoman, are you saying the president's record disqualifies him from speaking on race? Jasmine turns to the camera. Not Trump, not the crowd, but straight to the viewers. I'm saying the record speaks for itself. Anyone who hears it, really hears it, needs to ask themselves what kind of leadership they're willing to excuse. Trump's body language shifts. He's no longer leaning forward in confidence, but back in discomfort. His smirks are thinner, slower, as if waiting for a lifeline. He pulls the mic closer. Look, Jasmine, or whatever your name is. Gasps ripple through the crowd. She replies coolly, my name is Congresswoman Crockett, and I've earned every syllable of it. Trump waves dismissively. You've got a binder full of fake news. Same garbage CNN's been spinning for years. I've done more for Black Americans than anyone on this stage. A harsh laugh bursts from the front row, disbelief, not humor. Trump doubles down. I created opportunity zones, gave permanent funding to Black colleges, passed criminal justice reform. Do I get credit? No, because people like you want to paint everything as racism. Jasmine doesn't blink. People like me, Trump stumbles. No, I mean, Democrats. You're all obsessed with race. Her smile is humorless. We're not obsessed with race. We're impacted by it every single day. The fact that you think talking about racism is worse than experiencing it, that's the problem. The moderator tries to break the tension, but Jasmine leans forward. Let me ask you something. You say you helped Black Americans. Did you ever listen to them? Not your donors, not the ones in hats at rallies. I mean the single mother in Fort Worth who couldn't afford childcare when you slashed community grants. The teenager in Shreveport who couldn't get into a decent school because your education secretary gutted public funding. The family in Jackson who watched their water turn brown while your EPA rolled back clean water rules. Trump rolls his eyes. Now you're blaming me for water problems. Jasmine's response is ironclad. I'm saying leadership means taking responsibility, even for things you didn't cause. But let continue. Trump raises his voice. I did listen. I had Kanye. I had Diamond and Silk. Jasmine cuts through. Ah, so that's your focus group. 2 entertainers and a YouTube duo. No mayors. No community organizers. No school superintendents. Just people who clapped for you on TV. Laughter waves through the audience. Not as a joke, but as release. You don't get to pat yourself on the back because you found 3 Black people who said nice things about you. That's not outreach. That's optics. Trump sits silent, unreadable. Jasmine adds quietly, no, I'm just not afraid of you. That line echoes seismic. The moderator tries to shift gears, but the dynamic has flipped. Trump isn't dominating anymore. He's defending. Behind them, Twitter posts flood in. Jasmine speaks. Receipts and respect. Jasmine sits back, folder closed. She's said what needed saying, not for comfort, not for trends, but because the room was too quiet for too long. Silence is never neutral, but now it's gone and something raw is surfacing. Jasmine takes the floor again, softer but piercing. Since we're talking impact, let me tell you about my cousin Darnell. Trump crosses his arms. He lived in Longview, Texas. Good kid, smiled more than he spoke, loved drawing superheroes. Little sketchbooks stacked in his room. Wanted to be an architect. One night at 17, driving home from Sonic, he got pulled over for a broken taillight. Reached into the glove compartment for his insurance card. A pause. Heavy. The officer said he moved too fast. Darnell never made it home. Trump shifts. Jasmine looks at her hands, then up. He wasn't a headline, not a trending hashtag. No protests, no marches. Just another family with an empty chair at Sunday dinner and no one to call for help. The room quiets, hanging on her voice. You want to talk policy, your record. Let's talk about what it feels like to grow up knowing any encounter with law enforcement might be your last. Let's talk about why I ran for Congress, not for power, not for clout, but because I'm tired of burying people like Darnell. Her voice cracks, not weakness, but proof she's lived this. You tell us to be grateful. Grateful for jobs. Opportunity zones to be here, she says, locking eyes with Trump. We're not guests in this country, Mr. President. We built it. Our hands helped raise the buildings you've slapped your name on. Our votes made your office possible. And yet we're still waiting for the full weight of citizenship. Trump stares ahead, refusing to respond. I don't care if this makes you uncomfortable, Jasmine continues, because we've been uncomfortable for centuries in classrooms that erased our history, hospitals that ignored our pain banks, that denied our lone cities, where a Confederate statue gets more protection than a black teenager walking home with Skittles. A tear is wiped away in the crowd. Jasmine stays in the moment deep. There's a reason I came with papers tonight, not to embarrass anyone, but because we've been gaslit for too long. Told we're imagining things, told if we work harder, speak softer, wear a suit, things will change. A pause. Darnell wore a polo shirt. He still didn't make it. Trump speaks quietly. I'm sorry for your cousin. Jasmine meets his eyes. Thank you, but he's not just my cousin. He's our responsibility. The system didn't break that night. It functioned exactly how it was designed to. That hits like a brick. This isn't about party lines anymore. It's about whether we'll fix the design or keep pretending it's broken accidentally.